suspension work, rear end work, four-wheel drive work. But like I said, it's in limp mode. So I found a 2010.
How are you?
I'm looking at it. I'm a girl and I didn't realize.
Roll around on the floor trying to wrestle with the blanket like I was gonna sleep. Finally, I just scooped up with it. Put her knees together. We snuggled under the blanket.
Yes.
In the
So I would have
computer,
been.
before that, it was the Apple.
See the little yellow.
Big floppy, big floppy disk.
And that shows you.
1100.
It's kinda like, man, we got
Because I already have it all.
cool stuff.
I would have put you this.
I said Randy's not gonna be here.
That's the money I made you go pay.
Did we have any-
No,
There's still one there.
yeah.
Nice and good.
It only says 7.
It's only on for a month, please.
We had to clear out the whole year's worth of usage because they were arguing that there wasn't a leak, but there was a leak.
So what are we adjusting this?
The sewer portion of it, I'll have to look and see, rate it and write down what the sewer amount was. There was two. And she found a leak quickly and fixed it quickly.
It started. Do we need to silence it or?
No, you're good. Everybody paid for 2 minutes. It was ours.
There's some chairs over here.
Isn't that where the bank ladies usually sit?
Yeah, we'll get more chairs if we do.
If you're blind, you better not be short.
Okay, it's 6. If you guys wanna stand for the flag. The pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our meeting this month for our employees has switched from the last Monday of the month to April, or May 18th at 8:15 a.m. because of the holiday. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. Can we get approval of last month's minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve last month's minutes. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Public comments from the floor. Dave, I have you on new business. But do we have any other comments?
Can I say thank you to the guys that put the
Culvert?
culvert in. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And hopefully that will help. I know there's some other things that need to be done so that the water doesn't just pool on either side of it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
It's on our list
It
when the
is.
weather really,
It's
I've been over it 2 or 3 times.
kind of wet right now.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay. Reports, clerk treasurer?
I have submitted the financial report for the quarterly, everything's looking good, the balances are all there. General, obviously, is still in deficit, we're working to build it, but you can see steady growth in all of the funds, and all of the appropriations is looking healthy again, so. I did wanna note that any money that has been coming in with restitution or whatever, we had discussed and we were gonna put it in the general and put it under general other. I just been saying that so that it's in the minutes.
And that was, State Board of Accounts.
Yes, that was what State Board of Accounts said, that's where it needed to be.
And you got the SLF.
The SLRF report, for our grant, I have submitted that, and unfortunately, I couldn't close it out because it's not, the work is not completed. So as soon as it gets done, I plan to just close it out. The money is all balanced to the penny, with what I have expended, with our grant administrator, the money sets and a zero mark for that, and it's been tracked, so we're looking at there, and then I, also did the USDA sewer report. That was the first and super fun. I've learned, and so next year should go a whole lot more smooth. This is for our sewer utility loan. They want reporting on the financials, which was very easy. And the consumption, that's not my wheelhouse. So me and Randy worked together to get the diameters and all the infrastructure information that they needed and the statistics for, like, the town that we serve, so the number of students that was enrolled in the school and what their utility billing looked like. Very thorough, but it has been submitted on time.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Carrie?
We had about 37 calls for service. Those also included not calls, but ordinance violations that I put down as far as grass ordinances was the main one. We had 12 that actually mowed shortly after they were received a notification to mow. We only had 2, and those were abandoned properties that did not meet the requirements of mowing. Some of the properties that did mow, they were done, not really done well. So I'll probably address that with the next, round of trying to get them to actually do more than just mow around and actually weed eat and try to do something with the brush and a lot of the messes that are there. Traffic, pretty much normal, running traffic and stuff. We had about 28 traffic stops, several citations issued. Just like to remind people, I know the weather's getting nice, but our average speed on Main Street, according to our sign down there at the beginning of the sign. We're still getting the 60s coming into the 45s, and on average, I'm writing, anywhere from 45 to 55 on Main Street for citations. So, weather gets nicer, the speeds increase. So just watch your speed. We had, I know the other day I wrote 2 tickets, both were in the 50s, and it was right when school let out. So, let's see, the other thing would be, as far as just, question if, for a purchase, would be for a intoximeter, it's a portable breath test that we use. The 2 that we have are about 15 years old. They work fine. If you recall, months ago, we were given one to test. I did use it a few times. It works great. It's a newer model. Obviously in 10, 15 years, they've upgraded quite a bit. Even just the handheld itself is much easier to use when you're testing someone out on the road. But the price for the 1 unit would be $490. And so if you're interested in us purchasing the one that they let us test, I would purchase it.
And you said you've used it a few times and
Yes.
it did well.
Yeah, it's impressive compared to the old ones.
Discussion?
They have money in there for it. They understand on their equipment, so. Yes, sir.
Make a motion. For breathalyzer test. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion
There's did you talk to the kids on the golf, or the
Larry and I
go-kart?
spoke to I had spoke to him one other time when I caught him driving down State Road 59 on it. And then Larry actually spoke to him after we had a report of him driving over on the high school track.
I saw a kid on a four-wheeler at the elementary school parking lot, and he would go down the sidewalk on 7th, down Washington, come back up the wrong way on.
Yeah, and I just encourage people, when you see something like that, give the dispatch a call as your best best option.
I said, hey, bud.
Yeah. Tell them to knock it
What
off.
do you want? I said, well, I'm not a policeman, but I'm with the town board, and your mom and dad could get a ticket when you're doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell them.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the same way, I know we've talked a little bit about this, but a lot of you probably see a lot of stuff on social media where I know Terre Haute City is doing a new thing with the mayor and a lot of people with the town where they're actually getting a group of people together and they're going out and they're looking at these properties. And, so any of you that, see, a house, grass, all this, a lot of what you're going to be talking about this evening, I'm, more than happy, I know the council is, to get together and try to work on those issues the best we can. That's all I had.
We had a bunch of trash come out of the woodwork
Yeah.
or somewhere, garages or.
Water reports.
Randy's not here, she's got with you the report.
She had some shut-offs.
There was a few shut-offs, every single person on the list paid, if not the entire bill, more than half, so that's awesome. She worked with Doug, and he'll talk about that with like the water leaks and stuff. For her and Jim, both plants are running good. She was on vacation and ended up coming in last night. Stata called her, and alerted that the filter needed to be cleaned. She's the first call and he's the second. So thank you, Randy, to backwashing in the middle of the night on
Yeah.
vacation.
I think she was out there till after midnight.
Yeah, she's a trooper. But everything with their operations is going good, and you can see there.
Jim's not here for sewer report. I think, they're doing well with the digesters, that they hauled off all the extra sludge and stuff. They were going to work on the
pond.
No, the short ones out there,
Oh, the clarifiers.
clarifiers.
She's got people scheduled out and is handling all that, and getting quotes collected, so I'd say everything's good there too.
Street department, Doug.
We've completed, since last meeting, we've completed 23 locates, and 1 emergency locate. We've swapped out 8 of the old meters for new meters. We've got 2 leaks fixed in the system, the one on just north of IGA, and then the one on 157 had a leaking shut-off valve at the meter. We got all that fixed and it's not leaking anymore. Yesterday we had B&T down and they installed both the new flush hydrants at both locations and the malfunction fire hydrant at Loggers. They went ahead and pulled it and installed a brand new one yesterday as well.
Did you get a separate bill on that?
I talked to the office for the girls, I asked for itemized for each one of them for our reports.
We also pulled pump number 1 from the lift station at the campground. They're supposed to be calling the office to let us know when it's ready to be picked up. Other than that, we did our town cleanup Saturday. I think it went pretty well. And then completed the monthly meter reads pretty quick this month, so.
2 days. And everybody got their mail.
I don't know how, this month they all got them, and last month nobody got them. Speaking of cleanup day, we shut down early, and we are really sorry we did that, but they brought us the wrong size dumpsters. We were supposed to have 40 yards. They were full. They charged us extra money. There was no way to get another one. There was no way to put any more in them, so we really had no choice but to shut it down. So hopefully next year that will not happen. That all you got, Doug?
All the town properties are being kept up with, mowed, weed eated by Jet.
Awesome.
Other than that, everything's running like normal.
Yes, congratulations on graduating this month.
Thank you.
You learn how to drive a clutch.
Yes. A few months ago.
We have 2 sewer adjustments that need to be brought to attention.
Me and Randy both had eyes on those, they were both legitimate leaks that they fixed, as fast as they could, so.
Can I get a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to do the sewer adjustments.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Old business, tower update. I think if you were here last month, you knew that we had got notification that they did not want to start the tower project until July or August, and we had Chris write a letter to Codwell Tanks, who was under contract with us, to have it completed by, was it July?
July 1 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, shall I want-
July. So, never heard a word until today.
Oh.
And the engineer called and said Codwell Tanks will be here, the crew for the tank will be here, June 24th to July 1st. And then the coating crew will be here from July 5th to July 19th. So that's what we got. So anyway, in the letter that Chris wrote, he informed them that we do have a small leak in the existing tower that we're trying to tear down, and they would be responsible if it leaked bad enough that it had to be repaired, and that if we got stuck paying $750,000 in grant money back, that they would also be responsible for that, for breach of contract. So that's where that stands. Any questions on the tower?
We're gonna get bigger, taller,
It is,
Clay City Hill.
yes. If nobody knows, they're cutting the tank, or they're taking the tank off, cutting it into and extending it 6 feet and then putting the tank back up. So, Carl Pipes' hearing is set for May 27th. at 1 PM at the US Courthouse, room 202, and it's 46 East Ohio Street, Indianapolis, with Judge James Sweeney. This is for sentencing, but if she doesn't have her restitution that she agreed on, then it will be postponed. As far as I know, we'll be notified if they're not going to go through with it. So far, we've not been notified, so. Wabash Valley Community Foundation grant. Phases of letter of intent. You wanna take that?
So, the Wabash Valley Community Foundation has, grant portals open for different community projects. So I applied for one for the town for the, for the amount of 25,000. You have to show that you've got skin in the game and, how it would benefit the community. So we have tried to make town hall more accessible to the community, clean it up, make it look nice. We did certain things with our utility departments, but what we really need is generators in case of an emergency. Our police department does a wonderful job maintaining, but it would be really nice if we could have town hall open and operational, as well as having a big generator out at our lift pumps so that everybody has water when we lose power. They were very encouraging and eager to work with us. We've partnered with them before and it's always went beautifully. So we submitted the letter of intent, and they not only said that we qualified, but we're working together to make sure that we can see this to fruition. So there's a Clay County community leaders or whatever that meet, and they're the ones that decide. So we've submitted everything, the project, the proposal, all of the phases, what the intent is. We're gonna get that posted on the website tomorrow, now that we know that we're in the running for it. So very exciting.
Thank you. We had discussion and a vote on adding 2 four-way traffic stops to town. And this is the final reading for it because we had the first, this one is the second. So there would be a stop sign added to the intersection of 8th Street and Langford Street and 8th Street and Cook Street. You wanna talk about that, or do you wanna make a motion to pass it?
I'll make a motion to pass it. See what her saying.
I don't agree with only one of them,
Okay.
so.
Well, it's majority, so I agree that we should have them. So I will second it and take a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried 2 to 1. Last meeting, we had a citizen propose a food truck fee for trucks that came in town other than when we had fairs or community things like the Chocolate Walk or Pottery Festival, or just in city limits. If they're out of city limits or in the park, we have no control over that. So it's on the table to put a $100 yearly fee for a truck that wants to come in and do sandwiches or whatever.
You're gonna have to pass an ordinance if you wanna do that.
Okay, but we need to know if we need an ordinance.
You would need an ordinance to do that if you're so inclined.
So do you want to further pursue this, or how do you want to handle it?
Are they still coming in town?
Say, when was the last time we had a food truck outside of the fairs?
Well,
Couple weeks ago.
How often do
Traveling conference
people?
to school the other day.
different people?
I don't know, I was the one that proposed it, I just feel like somebody pulls in with a food truck that's within a block of 4 established people trying to make a living selling food here, park on the street on a Friday at noon time. I don't no longer have skin in the game, but it's tough, and I just feel like if you can come and take $400 or $500, $1,000 worth of business away from the people that run a restaurant every day, the town should at least get a permit, $100 or something along the line. I think it's common in other towns, but
I'm pretty sure I saw a food truck up in front of the school. Did you guys used to go up there? You?
Me?
Yeah. You went up there, Pretzel. You and your redheaded assistant were up there getting pretzels or something. There was a food truck.
Pretzel, does that count?
But there was a food truck.
They had a food truck come during Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yeah, they
No,
serve
it
coffee.
was
Tom's, that's what
Doing
you
the
said for
donuts.
teachers.
Yesterday. Yeah.
We had Tom's.
That was a
Coffee.
private thing that the,
Well, I just
Yeah.
remember seeing one up there.
Yeah.
Last
the
year was
PTO
pretzels,
sponsored it, yeah.
this year
I'm not
it was
taking sides.
coffee.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
I mean, maybe we can get more info on it, or more comments from people, what everybody wants, you know? Does anybody?
So we wanna table it and then discuss it?
I have a question,
Yes.
because I pastor here in town. Would that ordinance apply if I, brought in a food truck onto the church property to take care of, if we paid and they provided the food?
generally,
How would that,
For your congregation?
anybody and everybody that wants to come by?
from the research that I looked at, generally if it is a private event, that you are hosting, not, open to the public where it's like a downtown event or a thing, that would be up to the council as far as writing that specific, wording into an ordinance. You've gotta be very, 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 itemized and detailed when you're talking about permits for food stuff, like the limits within city limits, fairs and festivals, like that could technically be like considered a community event, so the wording has to be very on point.
Well, that's how.
And Chris can check me on that, but that's what it looks
Well,
like.
I mean, you have, it seems like reasonable, you go, make them pay a permit for a food truck. Well, then you gotta define, well, what is a food truck? What if they set up a table, they're selling lemonade? Or cookies, I know the intent wouldn't be to charge kids who have a lemonade stand. So, okay, so what is a food truck? Is it a mobile? Okay, is that a mobile? Then, what's the kind of event? So, if they're, I guess what I would say is if the public could come in and purchase things for them, that'd be a food truck. That would fall
Well-
within the purview.
What we would do is pay the vendor, and it would be a fundraiser. So if people wanted to contribute or donate to the church, that's the way it would work. So would the church be liable for that, or to pay the
But
annual fee?
But you're getting an
Or-
idea about how you need to draw the lines on the ordinance, so we make sure that we are requiring a permit of those who we're targeting and aren't putting an undue permit on somebody we're really not targeting.
I'm not against our local restaurant owners trying to make money.
Mhm.
I'm not against that at all. I'm just saying that, should we have a fundraiser and we have a food truck there,
It'd be totally different than parking on the street.
so that's my question. That might be something that you all need to
There's
mull
a
over.
difference between a nonprofit
It,
and a for-profit, so there's different rules for each. And-
probably not. Probably you would not be able to differentiate between, if it's food truck, it's food truck, and you can't.
It's completely different at the health board.
I still think it's different than a food truck sitting up on a street that is closed. While it's closed, blocking public
You mean,
restaurants.
well, it was open.
The street was open
Yeah.
when the food truck was there?
Yeah, I brought it up because you see, it was Pappy's food truck. And they can just pull up in front of a restaurant and park in front of that restaurant on a city street and sell food of it. It just doesn't seem right to me. I mean, I understand if it's private
Terre
property.
Haute has an ordinance for food trucks, so what you're saying is not, ill-conceived at all, and obviously there are other community, I mean, you looked at, there are other
Yeah, I was
ordinances out
looking
there,
into it for 'em.
but, make sure we have an understanding that when you draw up this permit, there are unintended consequences sometimes, right? So sometimes, okay, well, who are we gonna include within this permit requirement? And it can't be arbitrary, right? That's why I have a problem between nonprofits and profits, if it's a food truck, it's a food truck. So I say that from the perspective of, you can ask this town, I have no problem drawing ordinances. I've drawn lots of them, some of which were never passed. But I'm just saying, there needs to be kind of a discussion of, what do you want in that ordinance? How do they come in and get license, how do they, who's responsible for, they come in the town hall, the clerk would likely be responsible for issuing the permit. Is it a 30-day permit, is it a 1-year permit? Where can they set up, where can't they set up?
Okay.
And where that money would go.
I make a motion that we table this till May 18th when we have our town meeting,
Our two meetings.
with the employees, and we'll stay after, we'll meet with employees and, discuss this. And I agree we do need to do something, and we'll discuss a price and everything they get back with Chris.
Okay,
Fair enough?
you'll have to set it
And
as an
in the
executive.
meantime, I can contact the municipal lawyers and see if
Okay.
they'll have some,
I'll contact them and see.
That
templates
way
of-
you won't have to
we-
wait a whole nother
Yeah,
month.
right, and we don't have to invent the wheel, I mean, there are other
Right,
companies that
right.
done this, and I can
And the
get-
weather's gonna get better, so
Right.
there might be some more.
And who knows how regularly it might happen.
Right,
but
so we can deal with that.
It just
the
seems-
18th. Sounds good to me.
Yes, so after our employee meeting, we'll have to have an executive meeting for discussion
Okay.
and then make your decision for the next open. New business. Dave?
If you don't mind, I'll just stay here unless you want me
Yeah, you're
to stand, but
We have a table for
or whatever you want, Dave, I'm ready
you.
to.
That's why we got that, for people to stand up.
I want to say thank you for giving us a chance to kind of discuss this tonight. And I know there's been numerous discussions in the past about what can we do about things that we have. So I've been involved with different things, a little bit with the county, a little bit with Thrive, a little bit with the Wabash Valley Community Foundation, and some things that have kind of come near and dear to my heart. I know a lot of other folks that are here is our town pride, what we feel our town should look like, what we feel our town should be. So I've thrown some things together. Some of these are my thoughts, some of these are thoughts and discussions with other people. And so I wanted to take a look, so I've got a presentation that the town board and Chris has, but anybody that's here, if you want to look at the slides, that QR code, you can pull it up on your phone and you can see the slides that I'm going to kind of go through. But basically what I want to take a look at tonight is talk a little bit about appearance, some of the negative impacts, some of the benefits, some of the ordinance enforcement, and then suggestions for next steps. I'm not up here to criticize, I'm not up here to find fault. We're all part of this together. We want to help find solutions and help work with the town to do this. And so that's kind of the approach I'd like us to take. Taking a look here through the introduction, our town has significant deterioration of downtown buildings and blighted homes. It poses a health and safety issue, a deterrent for pride in our town, and limits economic growth. And as we saw last year at what happened with the old Mason building, and kind of how long it took to get that taken care of, we're lucky none of our other buildings have kind of gotten to that point. And some of the pictures that I have in here, if you kind of look at the first few pictures that are here really on slide 1 and 2, these are the current buildings that we have in town and some of the homes that we have in town. if you walk down the alley on the east side of the road and take a look in the buildings, they are really in bad shape, which I think we all know. You know, the roofs are falling in, there's damaged brick, we saw what happened with the Mason building. But if you take a look at those, is what you can see in some of these pictures, there's holes in the building, there's windows that are gone, there's damage, there's roofs that are falling in. I think there's even a mattress in front of one of the doors for one of the buildings. And if you look at here on page 2, one of the houses that's here, it's overgrown, there's trees growing through it, there's vines that are growing through it. And I'll talk a little bit about why I have some of these pictures in here. But as we kind of go through the appearance, everything that's on here that I'm showing are all buildings or homes that are owned by non-local people. Everyone on here that I pulled out. Now, that's not all. There's other things that are in town that are owned by people that live here in town. But kind of what I wanted to focus on is just, I'll say, non-local landlords or non-local owners. And one picture on page 3, the bottom left-hand corner, that all those trees, there's a house behind those trees. So I'm not sure if that one is in town, that's right over there on 59 by Taines. But I can't remember if the west side of 59 is in town or not. But it's one of the properties that's of an issue. But the old Main Street Diner, if you look at the buildings on the east side, the old red and white building, if you look at some of the buildings that are a little bit north of where the flower shop was, it's kind of hard to see in the pictures, but there's holes in the brick sides of the building. So all these buildings are open to issues, whether it be rain, whether it be somebody just getting in and being malicious, or whether there's raccoons in there, or whatever else might be crawling around in there. So, just some of the negative impacts. There is a big risk of us having a building fall down. And if you've seen some of the news over the last few months, that some of the local surrounding communities, you can see the videos of the buildings falling in due to the heavy wind. We've had it as Clay City, USA, the library in the storm a few years ago. We had work done on the building, and those storms were strong enough that it blew over part of the side of the parapet topped on the building onto the roof. So we had to have the roof repaired, we had to have the wall repaired, and that was not a cheap endeavor. Luckily, we had insurance to cover that. But what would have happened if it would have fallen the other way? Kind of what happened with the Mason building. When we talked with the engineer that evaluated the building, the engineer told us if we would not have had the brick tuck work done, we could have lost the whole building. So luckily, we did not. But that was a building that's had maintenance done on it and the prep work that's done on it. So there is a potential action due to inaction. And Chris, you can answer the legal questions. I don't know if there's any liability that the town can face for not doing something with an ordinance, from what I've kind of read. I don't think they can. But if there are things that we could do and we don't do it and somebody gets hurt, there's the emotional impact on that too. So, but if there's building collapse, there's gonna be damage to adjacent property. And then I know Shannon, you just, is it okay?
Sure, okay.
Shannon has a new building that he's purchased here in town, but the buildings on either side are not in great shape. What if one of those goes down? And sometimes the way old buildings are constructed, if they fall, they can pull a wall down of an existing building. And there's a danger that goes along with that. So there's a cost to the current buildings that are adjacent to the buildings that are a problem. And as we've seen how long it's taken to do things with the pharmacy in the old Mason building, what if something happens to one of those other buildings? There's pest issues, there could be hazardous material in buildings. Old buildings more than likely have some type of asbestos in the building, whether it's in a floor tile or it's a ceiling tile or coatings that are on there. So there could be issues there. Looking at slide 9, there's an economic drain. There is a loss to the tax base that the town has by not having these buildings occupied. By having new owners, loss of the tax base, loss of revenue, loss of water and sewer connection for the revenue that comes to that. With our blighted homes, when nobody is in those homes and there's no new homes being built, you're losing revenue, you're losing a tax base for that. There's a community blight issue, which I think everybody kind of agrees with. It also has decreased property values. It has an impact on property taxes when the comps are not there. And if anybody has seen probably the letters that have gone out recently about assessed values have gone up, but I don't think it's due to anything more than just readjusting for what things cost today. There's also the negative social and psychological impact. Some of you might have heard the broken window syndrome, that when you have one broken window, the impact that it has on your communities. And we have a number of broken windows that are in our town buildings, plus some of the homes that are here in the area. And there is a continuing downward spiral when these things continue to fester. So that's sort of the negative impact, but what are some of the benefits? Well, if you take a look, there's improved safety. I think that's a pretty straightforward. There can be an economic revitalization. We can fix all of these things. If we can get people to build new homes, we get more people to move into the area, it just sort of uplifts everybody. There's an enhanced community appearance and pride. There's increased housing options. Right now, housing options are few and far between. I just sat here tonight and had a conversation with one of the people that are here that essentially said they know of somebody that was trying to find a home here in Clay City and they weren't able to do it, and it took them a long time to find a place to live. And I've heard that numerous times, that there are people who want to live here in this area, but there's no place for them to live. Or, and I'll just say it this way, they don't want to live next door to this. And I mentioned about the larger tax base, more money for water, wastewater connections, more money spent in town. I mean, just think for Danielle's business or Shannon's business, the more people in town, they stay in town, they're gonna buy food, they're gonna go get pizza. The more people, that's just better for the business owner. There would be some growth and there would be, I think, more pride in town. So, we've talked a little bit tonight about ordinance, about the grass ordinance, and I appreciate the job that Terry has to do going out and handing all these tickets and everything else. And so I can just imagine some of the conversations he's probably had. But I've taken a look through the ordinances, and there are some recommendations that I think would probably be worthwhile. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert, but I think there could be some changes. And I think there could be some more enforcement on some of these. More enforcement does take more work, but I think you can see that there's people here that are willing to support that. At least would make an assumption for a number of the folks here that want to be able to do that. But I think for the ordinance, Article 3, Chapter 1, for disposal of solid and liquid waste. From what I understand, I think there's a property or two in town. I don't know if it's been corrected yet, but it is not connected to the wastewater system. So guess where it's going? It's going on the ground. Public nuisance, Article 3, Chapter 4 says accumulations of rubbish, trash, refuse, junk, and other abandoned materials, metal and lumber. Any condition which provides harboring rats, mice, snakes, or other vermin, building structures, swimming pools, or other places and locations where any violation of federal, state, local law, or town ordinance occurs. Any building or other structure which is unfit for human habitation, kept in such an unsanitary condition that it's a menace to the health of the people residing in the vicinity. Not that property itself, but those residing in the vicinity. That's a current ordinance is on the book now. What I'm reading is things that are on the books as an ordinance for the town. A recommendation I would have on that one is, and Chris, you might be able to provide clarification. I think that ordinance currently says that after you've submitted the fine for the ordinance, and if it's still not resolved, it says it goes to a jurisdictional court. I don't think other towns do that. I would think we could change the ordinance to say that it comes before the town board. I'm not sure, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking you that question.
Here's the problem. Even if it goes before the town board, the board does not have judicial powers.
Right.
So any action they take would ultimately have to be enforced through the courts. So in other words, they can make a finding, the person says, I'm not gonna pay it. Then it would be, the onus would be on the town then to take the action, file something in Superior Circuit Court to enforce the finding of the board, which is, we'll talk about it in a minute, but that's really the nexus of this, is who assumes either the legal costs of enforcing these mechanisms, or alternatively, where the town is permitted to tear down blighted buildings. Someone has to pay for those costs up front. So that's where the rub comes in.
The cost is, the money aspect is part of that.
Right.
I think some of it can be recouped with fines and liens, but probably not all for that particular case. The reason I kind of ask about that before, whether it goes jurisdictional court or the town board, when I've looked at the county ordinances, they don't do that. The county ordinance is not written that way. One of the recommendations I'll have in here in a minute is what the city of Brazil does, and I don't think the city of Brazil does it that way.
No, they're straight into action.
Say again?
And take action after it goes to the city board.
Yeah. So, I'm just not quite sure exactly how they do that. The recommendation I have in a minute, we'll talk about kind of what Brazil does. But in my discussions with them, they don't go to court. Now, I don't know exactly how they do that, but we'll wait till I get here to another slide. Article 3, Chapter 5 is public nuisance penalties. Notices to abate nuisances, town remediate, and file liens. That's a recommendation. The ordinance is there. Let's just take steps to kind of enforce it. Article 3, Chapter 5 for the regulation of grass and weeds. I think the current fine is $50, but isn't that like a one-time fine for the year? I'd have to go back and look, but my recommendation is, why don't we fine them
Every
per
time.
day?
Every time.
Why don't we fine them per day? If it takes 5 days, fine them for, because some of the ordinances we have will say the fine is between $100 and $300 a day, and each day following that is, essentially, it's the recurrence of that. So if it's 5 days, they're fining that amount for 5 days. So I know grass is kind of a simple thing, but it might be worth evaluating whether we change some of this. Article 3, Chapter 8 is very similar to this for trash and refuse. The penalty, recommend changing the penalty range for $25 to $100 and period for assessing additional amounts to a certain dollar amount per day. Not just once or twice or 3 times, but penalize them per day. The last ordinance here is for unsafe building or premises. Unsafe building or premises means an impaired structure, condition that makes it unsafe to a person or property, dwelling unit unfit for human habitation. Abandoned, vacant, or partially constructed or partially demolished building which is not adequately guarded or sealed against intrusion. We have those buildings here in town where they're not adequately sealed and they're not safe and it's unfit for human habitation. One of the things I noticed in the ordinance is in this one, Article 4, Chapter 1, at some point, it was authorized to do an unsafe building fund, to establish an unsafe building fund. I hadn't read that before, so I don't know if that was ever established, which it sounds kind of like that an unsafe building fund was put in place to maybe kind of help combat some of these things, but I don't know if it was ever done.
I don't have a fund appropriation for that, so I would
Yeah,
say.
so
it
I didn't think so, but it was in the Clay City Municipal Code 4-1-4D is what it was. And then place fines or liens on properties. That's kind of a recurring theme here. So I've said a lot of things about all the issues that are here in town or some of the ordinances, but what are the next steps? What I recommend is that some of us go up to, and someone from the town board and I would like to go to, is visit Brazil's planning and zoning officer. It's Janet McClellan. I've had some conversations with her. She has offered to sit down with us and say how they do it in Brazil. She's been very lucky. I think she's done over 83 properties in the last few years and being able to take care of some of these issues. And she'll talk about how she does fining, how she pays for it, how she puts the liens on it, how she handles it with the courthouse, how she gets through resolutions, and how they do it in Brazil. And so she's willing to sit down with us and explain how they do it. That may help clear up some of these things to see what another town is doing. So I would recommend that we go up there and we talk with her. And she's offered that. She's really good at what she does. I'd also recommend that we focus on 5 properties. Let's pick out 5 properties, and out of those 5 properties, all non-local owners, let's do something with those 5 properties. That's a way to get started. It's a way not to impact current people living here in town, and may show, hey, the town is trying to do something, maybe I need to do something with what I have. And then, I think, follow the ordinances. Work with owners, and if no actions and notification letters, implement fines and place liens. And I'm not trying to be a bad guy here. I mean, we all have to live in town, we all have neighbors that we have to live in town. There's, I think, certain responsibilities with that. Also, next steps, there are some grant options. Okra has a grant. Once we get the water tower figured out, we can actually work with Okra for a grant that's up to $500,000 to tear down buildings and leave them as a green space for 5 years. And then we can do whatever we want to do with that property. That's an option for some of these buildings here in town that we could get a grant for. There are some other grant opportunities that are out there. Thrive has money for blight issues. They have Lily blight money, and they have some other funding options that can be available for us to help. There's also some other things. I didn't have much time to talk with Megan Scheidler or Summer Long, but there are some other programs that I think are available in the state that if people are having some trouble with their homes, they might be able to get some help maybe to fix some things. So I know there are programs that are out there. I'll say tonight, there are builders who want to build in Clay City. There's one representative here tonight for a builder that wants to build in town. There's other contractors that want to support those builders, and I've talked to a second builder who's from the area that wants to build. Problem is, trying to find property to build on. If we can do some things with some of these blighted homes, we could actually get a new house built if we can take some of those steps. There's people that want to move to Clay City. Another recommendation I have is that consider a TIF district for town. But TIF is, Lance, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a tax increment fund. Am I saying that right? TIF districts are set up by the Rural Development Commission, and you have 2 board members here tonight from the Rural Development Commission for the county that can be set up for town, that the money that's in the TIF district can be used for these improvements. Now, it's not an overnight thing. It's not a new tax. The way a TIF district works is when a TIF district is established, a tax baseline is put in place. As assessed values change, and that increment goes up, a portion of that increase from the assessed value, which people are going to pay in their taxes whether it goes to the TIF or not, can go into the TIF fund and support things that you're trying to do, and can help with maybe being able to help tear down a house or do some of these other kind of things. So the Rural Development Commission, I think, is open to considering a TIF district and talking with the town about trying to do that. And I want to emphasize, it's not a new tax. Nobody pays any more in their tax. It's just a portion of that assessed value that when it changes, the tax that comes from that comes to the town to do those kind of things. And it can not only be for blighted homes, it can be water and wastewater and other things that are there too. Depends on how the TIF is set up. Lance, did I say that right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. And then as the town kind of gets back on their feet, hopefully some of these things will settle out. Maybe in the next round of budget a little bit more for some economic development might go along with that. What I wanna leave here tonight is being a good neighbor is everyone's responsibility. People have a right to live as they wish. But when they do things or what they do impacts their surroundings, it's no longer just their property impact. It impacts everybody that's around them. And I'll leave you with this quote. It's from Walt Disney. Walt Disney said, "The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing." And I am so encouraged to hear the things that we've talked about tonight with grass and some of the other things. And I know that there are things that you guys do that you deal with day to day that we don't necessarily discuss in those meetings. And so I know that there's things that you're trying to deal with that just aren't out there in the public realm. So thank you. So any questions?
Just to kind of caveat under what you're saying, and I guess paint a picture for people. There's some folks that live outside of town that own some of these properties. A few months ago, I think we talked about it. I'm in a walkthrough and made an offer on those other 3 buildings, one being the one that's fallen in. Contacted the seller directly. Brittany, I don't remember her last name, but she doesn't live in town. I made an offer to her and she said, "Hell no, it will just sit like that for all I care. It's not doing me any harm." And she said, "I kind of like the building like that. My idea is to walk into it and call it Under the Umbrella and have no ceiling on the building and have picnic tables in there." And I said, "Well, structurally, that doesn't sound like it's gonna work out too well for you," but that was kind of the attitude that she had about the building, is it can just sit the way it is what she told me.
Yeah, there's no impact to her. And if the ordinance is enforced at $300 a day, after a while, it's gonna get pretty expensive. Chris, can you hand me mine?
And I would also say that what has happened here in town with the building there by the Pizza Gallery, that is a best case scenario. What has happened here is a best case scenario. There's a town I drive through to get to my in-laws, south of Petersburg. The building collapsed at the same time. Okay? The state, and it actually went on the state road, and the state actually did got the state road cleared up, but we just went down there a few weekends ago for Easter, and it is still streamed across the city street with nothing is being done with it at all. So, keep in perspective that what has happened here could be considered a best case scenario. It can get much worse.
One of the things that I did is these are just property cards from the non-local landlords for the buildings that we talked about in some of the houses. That there's a house at 1001 White Street, that I think had a fire a number of years ago, and it's open, there's vines all through the house, there's trees, growing up on it. And that is, owned by a guy with a P.O. box in San Francisco. There is, I think, a house in a building in town that's owned by Wiper Corporation, which is out of Florida. And the ones that Shannon mentioned are, 2 of the properties that they own are listed for the address of 731 Main Street, which there's nobody in those buildings. And then the other address that goes with that's out of Terre Haute. And then there is, I think, another one out of Greencastle.
Over the past few years, we have searched for those people, and then they get sold to another company.
Understand.
We were in contact, the one you're talking about on White Street was Massachusetts. last winter, Malice, Florida.
Yeah, from what I understand is if you place a fine and you fine them, say if you end up doing daily fines on them, it can go as a lien on the property. When the property sells, and Chris, maybe you know, the lien doesn't necessarily go with the new property owner, it goes with the past property owner.
Well,
If it's known.
if it's known, then it is paid out of the settlement at closing.
Right.
That's the only way clear title can be transferred.
Yeah.
The problem, the problem has, again, two steps. A, you can do that, but you can get a judgment lien. The fact that you find, we do have some provisions like on the grass cutting where we can put a lien, file liens on it. Some of these other ordinance violations, you can go and get a judgment against them, but again, you have to go to court to get the judgment, and then it's a judgment lien against the property. And that's always, I mean, that, again, I'm gonna circle back. All of these things we've talked about over the years, it's simply been a question of, do they wanna pay an attorney to go do these things and or assume the costs for demolition and
Right.
removing the, because this is not a new topic over the years. We visited this on different
It's been
occasions.
discussed numerous times.
And we have in fact torn down, it's been a while for these folks, some buildings at a reasonable cost, and a number comes to mind, a guy charges $2,000 to demolish a house. I don't know why I ever remember that. But, you know, that's, and I've talked to them about these, Terre Haute has obtained grant money to do this very thing. They're doing it, they're facing that same thing, and they're using these places to sell to builders to
Right.
build new homes in the city. And from my perspective, it is, and of course, the last couple of years' history of the town makes it even more difficult to have money made available for these types of projects.
Right.
So there's hope.
With the grass ordinance, if you can put a lien on it based on the cost, say to take care of the grass, why can't we change the ordinance to find if the buildings aren't cleaned up? The ordinances are there that defines what refuse is, what unsafe property. Why can't the wording in the ordinance be changed such that if you don't clean it up, remediate it, we send you a letter, we give you a certain period of time, if you don't do it, you get a second notice. If you don't do it, then we're going to fine you until you clean it up. So can we do an ordinance that way that's not a judgment?
I think we do that. I think we can do that literally now, because I've certainly written this.
Yes.
Sounds like it fits what he read now.
Yeah, I think the ordinances are already worded that way, that you wouldn't have to do a judgment lien.
Well, and the town has directed me on many occasions to write those very letters, and with some success.
We did get a trailer on 7th Street by $500 fine within 2 weeks. And
I think our whole goal is not to be cruel to people or
No,
to take their homes away. It's
That's
just
the
to
yin
get
and the
it cleaned
yang.
up.
Well, and then you get the 83-year-old woman who kids don't live here, but, when they get here in 3 months, they might be able to help me get this cleaned up.
But I think
These are all the different
they're all-
factors you
they're
get.
all dynamics, but I think the town
and you
board
get
has
people
some.
that don't wanna live here because,
But
the other side of the coin.
I think as the town board, though, you have discretion on how you enforce your ordinances. And I think you can enforce it for like the Wiper Corporation, not necessarily enforce it against the 83-year-old lady.
Yeah, we understand it, but sometimes we don't know who that is until it happens, and or
Yeah.
We
we
don't
get
want to
people come in
become
saying,
eyes.
well, here's a picture of this house just down the street, it's much worse than my place.
I
I'm
don't,
just,
it's
these-
not
I'm
a,
giving you these from personal experiences.
No,
These are, so this is
you're
the
right.
yin and the yang of a town board trying to not upset members of the community, but at the same time, do what you're saying here, trying to make sure everybody's a good neighbor to one another by keeping their properties at least reasonably clean and their buildings reasonably safe.
It's a balancing act, and it definitely is, and it's not something that can easily be done, but it does take effort, it does take commitment, and it does take support, not just for the board, but for the community to be part of that.
The recommendation that you've made that I'm really interested in is the meeting with what Brazil is doing. Because if there are things that they're able to implement that we could use,
Yes.
and that's been our, I don't wanna speak for the board, but I think the balancing the costs and our ability to do things without incurring costs.
My question is there a city and we're a town under 2,000? There are different things for us to follow than there is for them. So is that going to work for us?
You're incorporated, right?
We're incorporated, that's right. And the other thing though
We just have
is,
to meet with them.
do they have, does Brazil now have a zoning ordinance for the city?
Yes.
Okay.
We do
This, we don't, which is always an interesting discussion for a community. Do you want zoning in your community?
But I think the town board, though, can appoint an enforcement officer for the ordinance.
Well, we do, the town board sits as the building.
Right, they're enforcement officer. And so I don't think we necessarily need zoning when we have the ordinances in place that address some of these issues.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. I think it would be helpful for them to speak with what the Brazil office is doing and find out if there's, and then the town can decide, do they want to put in the ordinance measures that are being used in Brazil, put them in, implement them here in Clay City? Or are they doing something I'm not familiar with, which, trust me, I don't know anything. I learn more and more every day. They do something that I don't know.
Right. And it's not a snap your fingers overnight solution.
No.
Just mention, the TIF district might be a way to get some money to do some of these kind of things.
I understand that portion goes into that fund, but where is it coming from?
Property tax payments.
So
I
let's just
know,
say,
but what are we taking away to start
You're
that?
losing, so out of your property taxes, say you pay $1,000 for your home. And because of increased assessment, it goes up to $1,020. Percentage of that additional $20 then can go into the TIF district. And is it distributed between all of the other pockets that your other $1,000 goes to? Schools and county, and within the town gets a portion of that.
and you can put it in for a certain period of time, and it is no new tax. And so when you establish that baseline, your baseline isn't affected. It's just that incremental increase in the assessed value, the tax on that assessed value. So it's like Chris mentioned, that $20, a portion of that $20 now can go to the TIF district.
I don't know about y'all, but mine just went up.
Yeah, so do mine.
Can I ask a question? Something that isn't mentioned and something I think that we, most of us lived here for a long time, just kind of, we don't see it anymore. When anybody comes into our town from the north, that hasn't been in our town before, the first thing they say, what is that at First and Main Street? All those cars. I'll be honest with you, I haven't noticed anymore because I go by it, I've been going by it for 60 years. But that needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed.
It is addressed every month.
No, I'm not talking about the ones on the street. I'm talking about the clutter beyond the street.
Believe it or not, he's taken about 40 cars out
Really?
there. Yes,
Okay,
in the last, since fall.
good.
And
Okay.
he
I haven't
has-
noticed it, so.
Over 40, and he did 3 more last Saturday, or no,
Good.
2 Saturdays ago.
Good.
But it's a slow process, It-
So there's-
I would like
It
it to be
is
There is
for
faster.
movement
sale,
there.
so that's a hope.
Oh, it's for sale?
Yes.
He'd actually tried to park a couple of his cars in our church parking lot. And it was bad.
Well, the bad part is,
Get him out of there.
the bad part is some of the ones that you see on the Mexican restaurant parking are from the ones that have been moved. So it's possible that if we really hit him hard, they would literally shove them right over there.
That becomes a county issue, might go
And we
address that
can't
with
do
the county.
anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, we can always get Trump to send the National Guard.
Dave, everything you presented is not new to us. I mean,
Understand.
we have tried, like at the old grocery store, we went through 4 owners. And every time we
Bill
get
Red
close to
Wine.
doing something, then they switch and give it to somebody else, or, so it's not the fact that it hasn't been tried,
They couldn't even give it away the last couple of
yeah.
Donnell, we understand.
I know,
And I
and
think
I
when you see-
appreciate everything that everybody is doing, but I want you to think about this too. We get a statement on our finances every meeting. As of today, we are still $359,741 in the hole. Now, we are going to collect a bond, which is $171,068.47. If it goes through, we sign the papers, and then we're supposed to get a restitution of $100,000. So that there doesn't even put us at even.
And we will not get all of that restitution.
Right, so all of this money to file this and do that, until we get out of this, we can send notices to all of these people and say, clean up your property, you're against the ordinance, and we can even have Chris write the letter, it comes from a lawyer, and we've done it. That if they don't do anything, right now, we're not in the position to change it.
About the only thing we could do now is put more bite on the fine. I think that will get some attention.
I think so too, and Janelle too,
And then we're gonna catch after that, but
kind of a counterpoint to that, understand the finances of the town. But I think a path forward is if there's more bite into the fine and the liens are put on the property, it will be collected when the taxes are paid, or if they're not able to do that, it'll go up for sheriff's sale. Or, they can also be given.
I believe all those properties have been sold to sheriff's
Well, who owns them now is owned them for a number of years.
Yeah.
And if, as Shannon said, if they're not, I want the roof to fall in, because I wanna sit out there with my umbrella. If you fine them a certain amount, they're either gonna pay, and then you'll get money, or they can go to Shannon and say, hey, you wanna buy my property now, because I've got this other money that I'm being fined. So, I think the path forward is by putting more bite into it, putting liens on the property. It's gonna force them either to sell, or you're gonna get paid. I don't know if it's gonna do anything to get them cleaned up. Now, when we talk about this Wiper Corporation, Clint Lamb, former mayor of Sullivan, has dealt with him before. And Clinton's very successful in what goes on down in Sullivan and what he dealt with, and he essentially got the properties from the Wiper Corporation. So I think that we can probably get maybe some avenue with that. They're paying the taxes on this property. I don't think, like on White Street, I don't think that house it's not falling behind on paying taxes.
I don't think so, those people have probably never been in this town.
Oh, I doubt if they have too, they buy the properties. But if they start seeing, hey, why is all of a sudden now is it costing me so much more money? You'll see some action on some of these businessmen that are doing this.
Can you?
we
put
could send a
liens on that
picture
property?
along with the.
Cause I always thought grass and, sewer were the only liens you could put
I-
on.
I don't know that we can put liens unless we get a judgment.
That can be part of the conversation with Brazil, but I think the way that the ordinances, you can fine them, and if they don't pay the fine, it goes to the lien on the property. I'm a lawyer or legal aspect.
And if there is a lien, I don't think the liens are paid with the taxes, the liens are paid when the property's sold.
And if they, well, depends, I thought it went.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think there are some of those liens that do go on the tax, and I think the grass cutting is one of those, and the sewer liens are one. There's some that can, and I don't wanna speak like I'm absolutely certain these can't be, but I'm not sure they can, I'll put it that way.
So I'll kind of leave us with this, I know it's been a long conversation. I want to say thank you for everybody coming and showing support. We've got people in town and outside of town that are here. You guys aren't alone. We want to help with this. We want to provide as much help as we can and try and come up with solutions where it doesn't burden the town with a finance aspect. And all it's gonna take is a few of these to make an example, I think, to make a difference. And if we can get a property or two so we can have a builder build a new house and celebrate the building of a new house, I think it'll make a difference.
And the other cool part is some of these ordinances that Dave was talking about don't cost you a dime to do.
No, you collect money.
Yeah, it's not like anything, you know, that we're asking for $100,000 to clean properties up. There's actually hundreds of thousands of dollars available from grants to clean properties up. So that part is actually out there to get. All we gotta do is get it.
Well, we have to
But
be eligible for it.
Well, correct.
And-
Well, believe
and the
me, I know
problem
all
is
about
we have-
that.
Well, and see, that, explain that.
The bond for the water tower?
No, the fact that we have
We got an Okra grant
Okra
right
grant
now.
now, and you can't get another grant.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
Until that one's closed.
And we
Well,
got,
there's other
we
grant
got one
opportunities
to
through
purify
Red
the
and-
water treatment plant a few years ago. And because everybody was bitching about the T water, we finally got that cleaned up. And we had to wait for the water tower for that one to get.
Absolutely, and you guys are doing a great job. Just, that's one thing that I'm sitting there thinking, some of these ordinances won't cost a dime to do. Just, you gotta, it has to be done, you know, so there's no money out of pocket on that, which is a great deal.
I don't know about these two, but I think if we start by just sending the letters and have maybe Chris put his letterhead on it, you know, can you do that? And, I would like to do Main Street first, and then I'll look into, and you wanna look into those. that you just
I think we ought to send a picture along with the letter
Yeah,
and increase the
and I'm sure some
amount.
of them don't even know what their property looks like.
Right.
We've had, some of us have had discussions with Thrive. And Thrive told us if we could get 5 properties, they would help us to write a grant to get them bought and to build new houses on it. The goal would be 15, but right now Thrive has money, and they said if you can get 5, we'll help you get 5.
Houses, residential houses.
Yep.
Not the buildings up around there.
For the buildings.
So who's
What?
gonna tear them down? Cause that's not gonna be
Builder.
cheap. The builder's going to
The
tear
way
them
that, the way that the Thrive Blight money is available, and Lonnie and Lance, correct me if I'm wrong, and Russ, I think you were there too. If you have a landowner who is willing to give you the property or sell you that blighted property, they will pay to tear the building down, to tear the house down, build a new house on it, and then turn around and sell it. And they'll capital stack it. So if you have a landowner who either is willing to sell the land, you know, I gotta tear the house down, it's gonna cost me $5,000 to tear it down. The land is worth a few thousand, I'll sell it to you for $6,000. Buy the property, then you work with the builder and you work with Thrive, and what they'll do is they will put in the package for the grant, they will tear the property down, they will work with the builder, work with financial institutions to build a new house, and then the house can be sold. And there's different price points on that, and what they're looking for, $150,000, $250,000, good price point right now for a house is $225,000. So, and they will actually, as part of that whole package, can pay to get the house torn down. So it doesn't cost anything, say, for the town, we just gotta be able to get the property, and if the house on White Street, that's one of them, that's a big enough lot, you could probably put at least 2 houses there. And so when you kind of look out at the economics of what kind of price per lot to put a house on, for what the builder can do, yeah, it can be done, and they're doing it in Terre Haute, especially they're doing it in Terre Haute.
I'm thinking in my head here, what we might wanna do is at some point, contact these owners about, they need to remediate, here's the statute to do it as an alternative to that. If you wanna deed it, quit claim it to the town. But I don't wanna do that unless we've got something lined up with Thrive to make sure it would be an eligible property for.
You hear why?
Yep, I
Tribe's
understand.
contacted us and they are very willing to work with us.
So what we would need to do is almost have them consider the property before we begin to initiate a process to try to acquire them.
And I think too, Chris, I think there are probably some, I don't wanna use the term investor, but there are probably some people that are here in town that are willing to buy property at that price to work with local builders to build it, to get them built.
Okay.
So, if they could do a quick claim deed to the town and it becomes the town, then, yeah. But we've had discussions and they say, if you can get 5 properties, they just start.
We will work on that and get the meeting set up.
Chair's got something.
Wanted to add something a little bit ago, the main reason I came in tonight, and it fit in a little bit better a bit ago, but the, White Street address is what my 13-year-old let me know that all the little kids at the park are talking about, and they're taking dares to go in there.
It's been boarded up for a long time.
But that was the big thing, said, hey, you're the biggest one here, would you take us in there? And he said, no, you guys can stay away from there. And then he come home and told me, they were like 10, 11, 12 years old. Yeah.
I say the doors are open on it now.
Yeah, it used to be boarded up, but.
And he did say it's already been talked about that kids have been going in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure that's not the only one.
Right.
Yeah.
Larry
But that
caught
one
a couple last weekend.
I've taken enough time, thank you, I
Thank you.
appreciate it, and thanks everybody for coming.
We kind of went over the bond money release.
Chris is gonna clarify some of that just so that,
Okay.
everybody understands how
So,
that works.
so, under the release, so we're gonna get paid our bond money, but in here specifically, assigns, transfer, conveys, and delivers the company all of our rights, and that the company is hereby subrogated to all of the rights of the undersigned. So a subrogation lien, probably where folks may have run into it if you ever had a personal injury case where you're, and you had your medical bills paid for by your health insurance, and then you recover from the defendant driver, you have to pay your health insurance company back for the medical bills that they paid. I fully anticipate that auto owners will be seeking to recover what she pays in restitution. Now, arguably, we can say you paid $171,000 on what either the U.S. Attorney's Office has decided she owes, which would be what, $270,
Yeah,
isn't
that
it?
was the agreement.
And, or opposed to the State Board of Accounts says it was what, $360 or whatever.
Yeah, almost like-
So my position would be to auto owners, you're entitled to a pro rata share of, so if you've paid 170, say it was our actual losses were 342. That makes it easy, just for math purposes. So they paid us 50% of what our losses are, but they would only be entitled to recover 50% of the restitution that she makes.
So you're telling me that if we collect our bond money from $171,668, that the $107,000 that she's supposed to pay in restitution goes back to the insurance
Correct.
company?
And what I'm telling you is that arguably, we could say 50% of that goes to the town and 50% of it goes to auto owners.
Because she still has a portion that would be due that she has not paid.
And we would argue actually that there's some she owes that she hasn't been ordered to pay in restitution. So that's what subrogation means. But the reaction of my clients, who I tell them they gotta pay their health insurance company back out of their settlement is sort of the same reaction you're getting to me. Questions?
I have a statement, but I won't say it.
I also need to know, can you draft something up? I'm not sending that until we have something like what you just done.
Well, they're not gonna agree to it on the front end, I can assure you, but what I'm saying is that so here's how this will work. She's gonna pay $100 and whatever thousand dollars. And auto owners say, we get it. And I'm gonna say, you can have part of it, but you don't get all of it. They're gonna say, we disagree, and I said, that's no problem, we'll file what's called a declaratory judgment action in court, and let the judge decide what portion of that they're entitled to recover from the 100 whatever she pays. That's how that works. And normally when that happens, they say, well, let's work it out. That's what usually happens.
Okay. So council, I need to know if I can email it back, because they don't do anything.
Yeah, they won't write you a check until you sign the release. And I don't think there's anything unusual about the release in that regard. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, I understand, but we still didn't get what.
No. When you get hit in a car accident, you never get back what you lose. The best, if you've got an attorney, is to get 2/3 of it.
We already did that when we need to take a lesser amount.
So,
What do you say?
That's pretty sad, but.
I mean,
I don't know how you're gonna get out of it.
I don't.
Just go do it.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. Wouldn't you rather see her have to pay it, than not have to pay it? Regardless of whether some portion of it goes back to the insurance company? Now, I'd be happy to send in a letter with it saying, you understand that our losses were, give me that, whatever that number state board of accounts says.
Yeah, I'll give you.
And so we understand your subrogation interest, but you're only subrogated to, our position is you're only subrogated to your portion of our loss.
My answer would be yes. You wanted to send it back.
Would you like to send me the signed one to me, and then I will, and with their contact
With the state
information?
board of accounts.
I have to sign.
And with that number, with that amount, and with where you want the release sent, whoever that is.
So we are switching our trash service because we have had issues with, the one we currently have about not bringing us the right size. So we are putting, feelers out for a couple different companies to see where we can get the best deal.
Have you looked at your contract?
We don't have a contract.
I asked them to produce one, they have not produced one, and the one that we had, on my end, what I have on file expired in 2023, and we have not. So I am switching as soon as we can.
Okay.
They have not produced one yet.
I just dealt with Republic on these very issues before.
Yeah, we don't
And the
sign
same thing
contract.
happened with them. They didn't have a contract anymore. But they've got an automatic, the ones they use now are automatic renewal.
Mhm.
So you gotta get,
But they're not dated, right?
I'm just telling you what they use now is, you gotta give them
So much.
10
notice.
years notice of your intent to.
I plan on letting them know Friday, my displeasure with them.
Okay, well, we switched to the trash man
That's where
at
they're
our
wanting to
office
go.
because of, they doubled the price in 6 months or did something crazy like that. And I said, that's it.
They are, the utility that I'm a part of, We switched because issues.
Trash man comes over here.
Mhm. And he does wonderful, and you can talk to a human being that is local. Just so nice.
He lives a half mile from me. His father was our minister in our church.
I highly recommend it.
And I've known him since he was born.
Yeah, he does great, and he's very easy to communicate with, which is a good thing.
We need a motion to pay bills if there's no other business to take care of.
I'm sorry, I put your dollar down.
I'll make a motion to pay bills.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Our next, meeting is May the employee meeting is May the 18th, 8:15, and immediately following, we'll have an executive meeting. Executive meetings are not for decisions, they're just for discussion, so they are a private meeting. Next in, the town council meeting is June 2nd at 6 p.m. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.